What's up everybody, Venom here with a quick updated guide on Dave the Diver. Let's get right into it. So one of my first videos on this game was a beginner's guide, and I feel like I wrote it when I felt like I knew a lot about the game. I had put a couple hours into it, and I felt like I was equipped to explain some good tips for people just starting out, or to answer questions that I had when I first started. With that said, now that I have actually finished the game, I want to update a little bit of information on my initial guide and just make a new beginner's tips and tricks guide that I think is more diverse and caters to everyone that is playing the game for the very first time. So in this guide, we will discuss a beginner's tips and tricks guide, and I'm going to go over some things that I think are very important and will put you on the right track to have the best time possible while you play through Dave the Diver. And my first tip is going to be upgrading your equipment early on. Now, there are two things that I focused on mainly when I was upgrading my equipment, and that was my oxygen tanks as well as my carrying capacity. But realistically, I focused on upgrading them all at the same time because I felt like keeping one way higher than the others just didn't make sense. And the diving suit becomes extremely important later on. And I don't think that that's thoroughly mentioned during the beginning of your playthrough, that the diving suit becomes imperative to your success. So I recommend when you're starting out to upgrade your equipment all in unison as best that you can. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to go in a specific order. I'm not saying that upgrading one thing is more important than the other. I just think upgrading everything as much as you can at the same time is going to give you a better outcome as you progress, because you need your oxygen tanks to be able to stay down longer and get better fish. You need to upgrade your harpoon in order to do more damage to the scarier fish that you're going to come across, and then you also need your carrying capacity to be upgraded on top of everything else, because you want to carry as many fish as you can to get the most out of your dives. And then the diving suit makes it to where you can dive deeper into the water, and the deeper you go, the crazier fish and the more to the story that you're going to unlock. So I think upgrading everything kind of together and cohesively is definitely going to remain my first tip for Dave the Diver. My second tip is going to be try to get the perfect pour every time you pour green tea when you're first starting out. I have a guide on that if you're wondering, like, why can I not just figure this out? Which I had the same issue. I kept getting bad pours and good pours and not perfect pours. Perfect pours give you more money, and as you progress in the game, you are going to need a massive amount of money to hire more staff, to train more staff, and to pretty much do everything that there is to do in this game. You need money at some point. So my second tip is going to be just do your best to try to get the perfect pour on green tea every time if possible. And again, if you're struggling there, I do have a guide on it as well, which I will put in the description of this video. My next tip is going to also be about the sushi bar, and that's going to be try your best to keep the menu as varied as possible while also focusing on not only best taste, but also the price of the dishes that you're putting on the menu. With that said, auto supply helps a lot. So when you're putting all these crazy dishes on your menu at first and you're like, wow, this is a lot of dishes, how am I going to keep up with this? You can use auto supply to keep up with the supply and demand of the ingredients that you're going to need to make it through the night. I also have a guide on auto supply if you're not familiar with it, but basically what it does is it auto adds ingredients that you would normally have to go back in and add one by one if you didn't put, 10 to 15 dishes on the board. But if you're putting 10 to 15 dishes on the board every night and then only selling 5 of those dishes, you're going to be wasting the remainder of those dishes. So I think that trying to keep your menu varied while also paying attention to the price of things and the best taste rating on every dish that you're putting out is extremely important. You want to offer variety, but you also want to offer customer satisfaction, which is given by having a high best taste score. And then you also want to generate revenue, which is how much they're going to pay for the dish. So I think keeping things varied between something that tastes phenomenal and might be a little cheaper and something that is very expensive but might not taste the best, doing things like that and keeping it well balanced and varied, it's going to keep customers happy and writing good reviews because there's more than one thing on the menu at a time. And that brings me to my next tip actually, and it's still in regards to the sushi bar. You want to check your stats at the end of the night to see if you did better than the night before or if you did worse. And if there's a dish that sold the best throughout, the last couple of days, you want to try to stock up on that dish. So making sure that you're making the most out of your dives and catching fish that are selling well, or catching ingredients that are selling well, whether that be a fish or finding the little boiling pots that are on the ground. I definitely think trying your best to pay attention to the stats at the end of the night also becomes imperative to success. You want to know what's doing well, you want to know what's doing bad, you want to know what customers like and what they don't. And that stat sheet at the end of every night at Bancho Sushi gives you a better idea of what is successful, what is working, and what isn't. My next tip has to do with diving, and that is always check your oxygen levels. You are gonna see so many times in my videos, like not just this one, but other videos that I've posted, where my oxygen level is so low. And it's not because there wasn't any oxygen. I was swimming right past it, and that's easily done because you're so excited about catching new fish, you're so excited about learning these new mechanics, and you're just ready to, pick up these fish and bring them back to make a profit. But you have to check your oxygen. It's extremely important not to run out of oxygen down there, because if you do, you're not going to be able to take all the fish that you caught back with you. You're going to be able to choose one item, or one fish rather, that you can bring back when you pass out from running out of oxygen and Cobra has to come save you. And when he has to save you, like I said, you can only pick one thing that you picked up down there to bring back. That's a monumental waste of time. That is a monumental waste of ingredients that you might have found, a waste of the fish that you were able to find while you were down there, a rare fish that you finally were able to catch while you were down there. It just wastes a lot of time and energy that is better spent somewhere else. And so checking your oxygen is just like checking your health in another game. There is no health bar mechanic in this game. This is the health bar mechanic, your oxygen level. So try to remain on top of your oxygen amount at all times. And as you make progress and you level up your oxygen tanks, it becomes less of a tedious task to try to stay up to par with your oxygen level. And with that said, there are aggressive fish in this game that will attack you, right? And instead of losing health, you lose oxygen when they hit you. And that also depletes the amount of time that you're able to spend down in the depths, because you have less oxygen and you might not be able to find, an oxygen bag laying on the ground, or an O2 tank rather, inside of one of the chests. So it's definitely important to always have your eye on your oxygen as much as you can to make the most of every single dive while you're in the blue hole. And that brings me to another important point that got me killed quite a few times when I first started playing. Do not dive too deep. Now, in my thumbnail, if you look at it, it's me being mauled by a shark. And that's because when I first started and I didn't have a lot of oxygen and I had no clue what I was doing, I dove way too deep into the water and got attacked by a reef shark. And I was not prepared for the damage that I was going to sustain from being attacked by this shark this early on. I was not prepared for it at all. And there's plenty of fish above 50 meters for you to catch without getting mauled by a reef shark. There are blue tangs, yellow tangs, these tiny little pink fish that you can catch with a net. There is a plethora of fish up there. There was no reason for me to decide to just try to go as far as I could into the water without realizing what was down there. There are scarier fish down there. There are more aggressive fish down there. There are sharks down there that hit very hard. And yes, a very early quest will ask you to kill a shark, but I waited until I was ready to kill that shark before I went back down there. I waited until my oxygen was leveled up. I waited until my suit had the ability to go deeper down, and I leveled my harpoon up first before I even attempted to go deeper down and get mauled by another shark or a more aggressive fish that was going to attack me at an extremely rapid pace that I was not prepared for. My next tip is going to simply be pick up everything that you see on the ocean floor, whether that be a piece of wood, whether that be a starfish, a shell, just anything that you see on the ocean floor that you can interact with it and pick up whatever it has to drop. Whether that's kelp, like I said, just everything that you can interact with, make sure you're interacting with it and seeing what it has to offer. The boiling pots that are down there, the big red boiling pots, those contain special ingredients that are used in higher quality recipes and dishes that you're going to unlock as you progress. So you want to stockpile those early on because you're going to use them like crazy as you make more progress in the game. There are also chests down here. There's weapons chest and there's item chests. those things are extremely important. The weapons chests drop blueprints that you are going to use to create your own weapons. As you also make progress with Duff, he's going to create these insane weapons that will do not only a massive amount of damage if you're trying to do boss fights, but also ones that don't do any damage and get you high quality fish. And I explained that in another guide, my star quality guide, but the quality of the fish, that determines how much meat you get from that fish. So you want to aim for 3 stars at all times, and there are certain guns that once you are able to create them with Duff by picking up enough blueprints from the weapons chests, they become extremely important, and they help you get 3-star fish every single time you dive. And that's gonna do it for this beginner's tips and tricks guide. I know this was a little bit lengthier than my initial one, but I really wanted to share the knowledge that I've learned while playing the game without giving too many spoilers and without going crazy as to, you know, these hard mechanics and harder features that you're gonna come across as you play. This is a very basic beginner's guide, but I think it covers enough to really get you started in the right direction in Dave the Diver. And if you like the video, then like the video. And if you like my content in general, please subscribe to my channel. It means the absolute world to me. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!